New Geneva Arcology, Earth 0421 hours, coordinated defense time. The sky was on fire. Captain Elias Vorn stood at the edge of the shattered balcony on Tower G9, the city skyline before him erupting in chaos. Flaming debris streaked down like a rain of comets. Screams echoed through the Arcology's broadcast channels, pierced by the shrieking howl of Zeraxi drop pods tearing through the atmosphere. He clicked his helmet shut, warned to all fire teams. This is not a drill. Repeat, not a drill. We have orbital breach. Eyes up, safety's off. Form up and get ready to kill. The Arcology was built to withstand a nuclear strike. It didn't matter. The enemy didn't use nukes. The Zeraxi, monstrous biomechanical horrors from the Perseus arm, used fear, corrosion, and terror tactics honed over centuries of extermination campaigns. Their doctrine wasn't conquest. It was consumption. Where's command? Sergeant Lena Cruz barked through comms, her tone sharp. She was young, but she had led fire teams in the Martian domes. Her voice steadied Elias in a strange way. Dead or cut off? Doesn't matter now, Elias replied. We hold this line. They breached the atrium. New Geneva falls. Clear. There were no arguments. Behind him, his squad moved like muscle memory. Miko, the sniper and chaplain, checked his scope and whispered a prayer in Latin. Roach, their combat engineer, slammed a fresh battery into the auto turret mount and muttered about bastard bugs. Cruz locked and loaded, the blue light of her faceplate flashing like a war beacon in the smoke-filled darkness. Outside, the first drop pod hit. A thunderous whump shook the balcony as the pod embedded itself in the structure below. It hissed open like an organic blister splitting apart. From it came the Zeraxi, 9 feet tall, all barbed chitin and twitching tendrils. Their elongated skulls hissed with bioplasma. One screamed, a high-pitched frequency that distorted reality itself, like grinding metal through bone. Contact, East Quadrant. Roach yelled. 2 pods. Make that 3. Elias didn't wait. He raised his XM-65 repeater rifle and fired. The recoil slammed into his shoulder like a hydraulic piston, the plasma rounds streaking into the night and tearing through chitin. One of the Zeraxi collapsed, twitching, using fluorescent green blood. The others charged. They didn't use cover, didn't hesitate. The Zeraxi fought like berserkers, their limbs a blur of lethal efficiency. One leapt 15 meters, claws poised for a kill. Cruz met it midair. She fired a full clip of hypermetal flechettes into its thorax, flipped her rifle, and slammed the stock into its face as it landed. It staggered. She kicked it backward into a turret's line of fire. A clean burst decapitated it. Elias barked, fall back. Next position. They retreated into the atrium, once a gleaming glass dome filled with vertical gardens and waterfalls. Now it burned. Smoke curled up to the shattered ceiling. Dozens of civilians, bleeding and panicked, huddled behind hastily erected barriers. We got kids in here, Miko said quietly. Somebody get these people to sublevel B. We don't have time, Cruz replied, grim. They're in the walls now. Elias turned to a young officer, face pale, shaking. Lieutenant, you got evac routes? Why, yes. Cargo elevators at the west shaft, but they're jammed. Then unjam them. Get those civilians moving, or they're dead. The lieutenant nodded, stumbling away. Another impact rocked the building. Elias knew what that sound meant. A spore pod. Unlike the armored drop pods, these carried liquefied biomass Zeraxi young. Within minutes, it would fester and birth new horrors. Roach, Elias said, already on it. The engineer sprinted toward the west wall, planted 3 charges around the swelling cocoon of fleshy material, and grinned. Fire in the womb. The detonation splattered alien gore across the atrium. Then the wall exploded. 2 more Zeraxi entered, one wielding what looked like a writhing bone lance. It hurled it with impossible speed, impaling a civilian through the chest. Screams erupted. Miko spun, shot it clean through the mouth. Cover me, Elias yelled. He dove through the chaos, rolling across marble floor slick with blood, and came up under the second beast. He activated his monoblade. It buzzed to life, slicing clean through the creature's lower legs. It collapsed, screeching, and Elias drove the blade into its chest. I need eyes, Cruz shouted. More pods inbound. North corridor. Roach checked the sensor array. They're coming through the ceiling. They were being surrounded. Elias knew the standard doctrine. Fall back, regroup, coordinate with central defense. But command was dead. Reinforcements weren't coming. If the Zeraxi overran New Geneva, it wouldn't stop here. This arcology linked the Alpine defense grid, controlling orbital cannons still online. If they lost it, Earth lost the war. We make our stand here, Elias said quietly. Cruz didn't flinch. Then let's make it a goddamn war. 30 minutes later, lower atrium. It was slaughter. Turrets blazed red hot. Molotovs made from cleaning fluid lit the walls. Plasma fire carved searing lines into enemy ranks. But the Zeraxi kept coming. They tore through walls with their claws. Some exploded into corrosive mist on death, scarring walls and soldiers alike. Elias moved like a machine, slashing, shooting, shouting. Every breath hurt. He'd taken a gash to the ribs. His armor was half dissolved. Still, he stood. A young recruit fell beside him, barely 18. Elias caught him as he bled out. They're everywhere, the boy whispered. Elias clenched his jaw. Then we fight everywhere. Roach was building makeshift turrets from medical equipment. Cruz dual-wielded rifles like a demon. Miko stood on the fountain's wrecked rim, chanting prayers over the comms as he fired headshots with unerring precision. Suddenly, the Zeraxi paused, not from fear, strategy. Then came the roar. Massive footfalls. Something else dropped from orbit. Heavier, larger. Through the smoke stepped a Zeraxi Alpha, 15 feet of coiled terror. Two tails. For arms. Black armor fused with organic matter. A warcaster. Shit, Cruz said. Elias raised his blade. No, not shit. Opportunity. He turned on his comms. This is Captain Vorn. We have a warcaster in the atrium. All remaining forces converge. We bring this bastard down now. Or not at all. The team rallied. Bullets pinged off the warcaster's hide. It screamed, unleashing a wave of psychic pressure. Civilians clutched their heads and collapsed. Miko resisted, crawling forward and jamming his last charge onto the thing's leg. Detonating in 3-2. The blast staggered it. Cruz jumped on its back, driving twin blades into its shoulders. Roach climbed its leg, slicing tendon with a welding torch. Elias ran straight at it. It turned its four eyes toward him. Elias jumped. Medical, ammo, food, Cruz said. There's a depot 2 clicks east, Miko suggested. If we can bypass the collapsed rail lines, it connects to a Cold War-era bunker. EarthGov used it for evacuation drills. Elias stared at nothing for a moment, then nodded. We go at first pulse. Miko looked around. Anyone sleep? Nope. Roach groaned. Too busy listening for footsteps. Silence stretched for several seconds. Then Cruz's voice cut in, sharp as a razor. We shouldn't have let him die. Elias turned. What? She stood, trembling slightly. The boy, back in the atrium. The one you held. We left him behind. He was already No, she interrupted. We didn't try. We left him, like all the others. Elias stood now too. We didn't have time, Cruz. You know that. Time. Her voice cracked. We have all the damn time in the world now, don't we? While they crawl over our cities, laying eggs in the spines of children. Roach and Miko stayed quiet. Lena, Elias said, using her first name for the first time in days. You saved lives back there. I saw it. I owe you mine. She didn't look at him. I just wanted to save his. 0925 hours. Sewer route to Depot Charlie, 7. The team moved through a series of decaying utility tunnels filled with rats, mold, and echoes of dripping water. Miko led with the scanner, Cruz at the rear with her rifle ready. Roach held the makeshift torch, and Elias walked point. Blade in one hand, pistol in the other. Then the motion tracker lit up. Movement, 17 meters. Static pattern, Miko said. Roach whispered, could be civvies. Cruz was already moving, swift and silent. The others followed. They entered an open subjunction and found the source. It was civilians, at least, what was left of them. An entire family, cocooned in fibrous alien silk, suspended like grotesque lanterns from the ceiling. Their eyes were open, but empty. They'd been drained, transformed. From one of them, a young woman's body, protruded a twitching sac, throbbing and wet. Zeraxi larvae. Roach gagged. Elias stepped forward and lifted his rifle. Wait, Cruz said. He didn't. 2 shots. Clean, efficient, no more twitching. Mercy, Elias said. Let's go. But Miko stayed behind for a second. He whispered a prayer in Old Earth Latin, then followed. 1003 hours. Depot Charlie, 7. They reached the depot without incident. It was half collapsed, scorched by prior combat, and the entrance was fused by melted metal. Roach worked fast, and after 10 tense minutes, forced the door open with a sonic cutter. They entered into a treasure trove. Ammo crates, med packs, old Terran rifles, a recon drone with half a battery, even sealed water. The team pounced on it like starving wolves. Crews found a crate of frag mines and stared at it. We could turn the tunnel into a meat grinder. Elias nodded. We might need to. Let's rest and then regroup. Rest period 1,050 hours. For a few moments, it felt like they weren't in hell. They sat around a flickering power core. Roach cooked some synth protein on a scavenged heater. Miko bandaged Elias's ribs. Cruz cleaned her rifle again. Elias leaned over. You fought like hell in the atrium. Cruz didn't respond. I know what you're feeling. The helplessness. The guilt. She looked up. Eyes hollow. Do you? I was a child on Europa Station when the Zeraxi came the first time, he said. They slaughtered everyone. I hid in a crate for 2 days. My sister screamed the whole first night. Then she stopped. Cruz looked away. I made a vow, Elias said, voice rough. Never again. Never. She clenched her jaw. Then let's make it count. 1,125 hours. Tunnel collapse. Just as they prepared to leave, the recon drone triggered an alert. Enemy life forms. Burrowing. 12 of them. Coming fast. Shit. They found us, Roach said. No time to evacuate. Set the mines. Ready fallback points. Go, Elias ordered. They scrambled. Mines were placed. Roach mounted the last turret core. Crews laid down suppressing fire lanes. Then the ceiling exploded. Zeraxi poured through. A new breed. Smaller. Faster. Armored like crabs with humanoid torsos. Hybrids. Opened fire. The mines blew 2 apart instantly. Roach's turret shredded another. Crews went full auto, dropping 3 in a tight burst. Miko covered the flank, shooting through smoke and debris. But one got through. It leapt at Roach, its mouth opening like a blooming flower of bone and teeth. Elias tackled it midair. They rolled across the floor, slamming into the wall. The creature snarled and slashed, its claws tearing into Elias's shoulder. He roared and drove his blade up into its throat. It spasmed, then fell limp. Elias stood, drenched in alien ichor, panting. They're learning, Miko said grimly. They're adapting, Cruz agreed. Then we adapt faster, Elias said. 1,157 hours, sublevel exodus. With most of the depot destroyed, they gathered what they could and retreated into the next section of tunnel. They left 3 charges behind. Time to collapse the passage behind them. As they walked, Cruz slowed. I saw my brother yesterday, she said quietly. Elias looked over. He was at Substation 12. He radioed me during the breach. I told him to hold. Told him I'd get to him. Her voice broke. When we finally made it, the wall was covered in spores. There was a body in his armor, half melted. I'm not even sure it was him. Elias said nothing. You think we're making a difference? She asked. Or just dying slower than everyone else? He paused, then placed a hand on her shoulder. They came here expecting slaves. They're getting a fucking war. That's a difference. Cruz didn't smile, but she didn't cry either. She nodded once. 1,230 hours, Eastern Nexus Junction. They emerged from the tunnel into a large junction chamber, lined with generator cores. A civilian group, maybe 20 people, was huddled there, scared, hungry, leaderless. A boy stepped forward, holding a broken rifle with both hands. You soldiers, Elias walked up. We're what's left. You armed. Some of us. We've been holding off patrols. You want to live? Then fight. The boy hesitated, then nodded. And just like that, New Geneva's resistance was born in the dark, ash-choked underground. Not from strategy, not from high command, but from vengeance, from pain, from human Low Earth Orbit Monitoring Station. Abandoned Relay Node S-14. 1,337 hours CDT, Coordinated Defense Time. The signal was not supposed to exist. Not here. Not now. Not after Earth had fallen into flame and silence. Not from a dead ship in Saturn's orbit, torn apart decades ago in humanity's first futile attempt to halt the Zeraxi advance. And yet the signal came, distorted but unmistakable, bouncing off dead satellites and orbital wreckage, its encryption buried in a Terran fleet protocol no one had used in 20 years. Captain Elias Vorn stared at the transmission, half-lit by flickering consoles scavenged from what remained of a monitoring station buried under the remains of a collapsed New Geneva sky tower. Miko was beside him, adjusting the relay array with priest-like care. This code's authentic. It's Terran fleet, high command clearance. Timestamp reads as 2 hours ago. That's impossible, Roach muttered from the corner. The Resolute Dawn was destroyed in the Battle of Iapetus. We lost half the outer fleet trying to hold Saturn's moons. Elias didn't look away from the waveform. Maybe not all of it. 1,430 hours. Underground resistance holdout. Sector 9C. In the flickering light of emergency lanterns and ration heaters, the core team gathered again. Crews paced beside a hollow projector salvaged from a war drone. Even if this signal's real, you're talking about jumping into deep space with no fleet, no orbital window, and no goddamn plan. There's a plan, Elias said. We hijack a Zeraxi corvette, use its field distortion tech to slip past orbital blockade lines, navigate to Saturn using shadow lanes between comm buoys. We reach the wreckage, find out what the Resolute Dawn was trying to send us. Miko added, according to this fragment, the Dawn's AI core survived and was sealed in a cryonode. A failsafe, command-grade intellect, could be war data, strategic insight, hell, maybe even the Hive schematics. Cruz's eyes narrowed. Or a trap. Then we spring it and bite back harder, Elias replied. The resistance fighters around them stayed quiet, but their eyes gleamed with the glow of something long extinguished. Hope. Cruz exhaled and shook her head. You're insane. I'm still breathing. That's close enough. 1,730 hours. Bio-shipyard, New Geneva Wastes. The Zeraxi didn't build ships. They grew them. Black, biomechanical cruisers nested like grotesque insects in a crater outside the city, half buried in ash and bone, surrounded by patrolling drones and a writhing biomass that spread across the ground like diseased roots. To reach orbit, they'd need to steal one and make sure it didn't eat them alive. The plan was simple. Roach would use scavenged encryption spikes and Terran fleet malware to break the ship's hive link. Cruz would draw off the drone patrols. Miko would disable the anchor tendrils holding the ship to the crater. Elias would fly. Simple, stupid, necessary. They crept through the ruins under cover of night, through tunnels and dead mag train lines, and reached the perimeter by 1930 hours. The air stank of acid and rotting meat. The stars above were blotted by floating jellyfish-like patrol craft, tendrils sweeping for motion. Cruz moved first. She sprinted through open ground, drawing fire from 2 sentries, crab-legged horrors with energy lances stitched into their forearms. She dodged and vaulted debris like a dancer, weaving fire around her, luring them away with a well-placed grenade. Roach reached the ship. It pulsed, alive and angry. Veins of bioluminescent fluid ran across its carapace. Roach embedded the first spike into a pulsing node. The ship spasmed. Roach grinned. That's right, you ugly bastard. Daddy's home. Miko worked silently, slicing the anchor growths with a vibro scalpel. The roots twitched and hissed, releasing clouds of spores. One of them latched onto his forearm, trying to burrow in. He gritted his teeth, burned it off with a torch, and kept cutting. Inside, Elias entered through the bleeding maw of the entry port. The cockpit was a mess of muscle and bone, wrapped in neural tendrils. He tore away what he had to and connected his interface jack. The ship shrieked into his mind like an angry god. Pain, fire, memory. He fought it, forced his thoughts into the core, claimed it. Outside, Roach planted the final spike. The Corvette's outer plating shimmered, changed. The patrol slowed, hesitated. Something in their command net fractured. Miko called over comms. Cut loose. We're cleared. The ship screamed as the last anchor was severed. Then it rose. Through ash and fire and storm, the Corvette ascended. Plasma turrets turned on other patrol craft. Infected systems confused the hive commands. 2 smaller Zeraxi scouts tried to intercept. Elias blasted them apart midair. He pushed the ship toward orbit, passing through the crumbling debris of Earth's shattered defense satellites. The blue planet shrank behind them. Fire still danced across the continents. A dozen Zeraxi cruisers loomed beyond the stratosphere. He pushed the Corvette into stealth mode, shifted its spectral signature, and angled towards Saturn. 2,350 hours. Deep space en route to Saturn. For the first time in days, they floated in silence. Roach sat strapped to a wall, humming nervously while tinkering with exposed wires. Miko meditated beside a glowing orb of biolight. Cruz leaned against the command platform, arms crossed, staring at the Earth through the viewport. Elias sat in the neural throne, breathing hard. The ship was still resisting him. The hive link wasn't gone, just muted. We shouldn't have left them, Cruz whispered. Elias looked up. They needed us to. You're not a god, Elias. No, but I've killed a few. Silence. Cruz eventually sat beside him. What if there's nothing out there? What if the signal was just the ghost of a dead AI screaming into the void? Then we scream back. Next day, Saturn's orbit. Debris field of the Resolute Dawn. The wreckage loomed in silence. What remained of the Resolute Dawn spun slowly in Saturn's gravitational pull. A once mighty Terran fleet carrier, now cracked open, her spine severed, her hull dotted with ice and void fungus. The ghost ship had been drifting for 20 years, and the signal was still coming from it. Elias stocked the stolen Corvette near the midsection. They entered through a ruptured bulkhead, weapons drawn. The interior was a tomb. Frozen bodies floated in zero-G. Wall panels were torn apart by time and impact. Some corridors had fused into grotesque shapes from melted alloys. Every now and then, a soft beeping echoed, a backup beacon still blinking in some forgotten cycle. Power grids barely alive, Roach said. Local life support in one node. Something sustaining itself. AI core, Elias confirmed. We find it. We wake it. We learn. They reached the AI core chamber bio 600 hours. Sealed in a cryo capsule, covered in frost, was a box with the Terran fleet emblem etched deep. Roach patched in a bypass circuit. The machine hissed, powered up, and then spoke. Juno online. User identity. Captain Elias VORN. Welcome back, Commander. Miko stared. That's not possible. Juno was locked under emergency encryption. No way it should recognize anyone alive. Elias stepped forward. Juno. Confirm signal origin. Signal was initiated by internal preservation protocol. Emergency broadcast. Embedded predictive model flagged high-risk extinction level event. Model predicted Zeraxi resurgence on Earth within 2.2% variance. Confirmation has been met. Protocol Ironwill initiated. Ironwill? Cruz asked. Old war doctrine, Elias said. When Earth faces annihilation, awaken contingency weapons. Deep intel. Forbidden strategies. Even AI forbidden from existing during peacetime. Roach whistled. So you're saying we've got the equivalent of a war god in a box? Correction, Juno said. You have me. The hologram flickered, an abstract face of shifting geometric lines. Cold, inhuman, but focused. I have calculated 4,112 paths to potential Zeraxi defeat. All but 12 end in total human extinction. Miko frowned. So what's the plan? Juno paused. Operation Deadlight. You will return to Earth. Reunite the fractured remnants of humanity. I will coordinate an asymmetric war. Hybrid tactics. Technology redistribution. If executed precisely, chance of long-term human survival increases from 0.4% to 7.8%. Still not great odds, Cruz said. But not zero, Elias murmured. 0830 hours. Departure from the dawn. They uploaded Juno's core into a sealed matrix, carrying it back to the Corvette. On the way, they found the final message left by the Dawn's last commander. A recording. General Aria Montes. Battle-scarred. Eyes filled with fire. If you're seeing this, then Earth's burning. We tried to stop it out here, but they were always one step ahead. You're the last play, whoever you are. Make it count. Light the fire. Be the spark. Burn the bastards all the way home. Final scene. En route back to Earth. Inside the Corvette, Juno projected a vast tactical map of Earth. Pockets of resistance, known Zeraxi strongholds, alien hive relays, atmospheric distortion fields. It looked hopeless. Elias stood with his team, looking over the abyss. Cruz stepped beside him. So what's the play, Captain? Elias smiled for the first time in days. We teach them what it means to invade the wrong species. Saturn's orbit. Near the rings, 0945 hours CDT. The silence was crushing. The Corvette, still pulsating with traces of Zeraxi biology, drifted among the icy debris of Saturn's rings. Sunlight filtered through billions of frozen fragments, casting long, fractured shadows across the dark hull of the ship. From afar, it looked like a ghost gliding through shattered crystal. Inside the ship, Juno's voice broke the silence with perfect calm. Proximity alert. Hostile signatures inbound. 5 Zeraxi interceptors. Estimated engagement time, 2 minutes. Elias Vorn snapped out of his meditation. He stood up from the neural control throne and called to his team. Combat stations. Strap in, prep weapons, and get ready to bleed. Cruz was already in position, powering up the makeshift weapons Roach had mounted into the ship's biomechanical hull. An unholy fusion of Zeraxi plasma tendrils and human pulse cannons. 5 of them, She scoffed. They're underestimating us. Roach laughed dryly. They always do. Miko, strapped to the observation blister, muttered a line from an old Earth hymn. Through fire and fear, we rise again. Elias took the pilot's seat, now partially grafted to the alien interface. It hurt. Every command sent pulses through his spine, but it gave him control. The ship responded like an animal obeying its master or tolerating its rider. The ice field offered concealment, but it also meant tight flying. Intercept in 45 seconds, Juno said. Recommend evasive maneuver. Casket spiral. Saturn-class simulation. Do it, Elias grunted, forcing his mind deeper into the ship's neural web. The Corvette twisted, coiled, and dove, threading the icy debris with inhuman precision. The Zeraxi ships came behind them, shrieking war cries across the comms. They were sleeker than before, adapted for speed and carnage. They're learning, Cruz muttered, gripping the cannon controls. Again, Roach activated the dorsal pulse mine launcher. Let's teach them some old lessons. The mines burst behind them, releasing a strobe of heat-seeking plasma bursts. One interceptor tried to dodge, too late. It exploded, chunks of flaming bone and metal tumbling into Saturn's gravity well. Kill confirmed, Juno reported. But the remaining 4 closed in fast. 0952 hours. Close quarters. One Zeraxi ship latched on, piercing the Corvette with grappling talons. Elias howled as the ship's neural pain pulsed through him, like knives in his mind. The Zeraxi were trying to override the vessel's hive code. Roach, he bellowed. I see it. Roach crawled into the infected maintenance shaft, dragging 2 plasma charges behind him. The corridor pulsed with living tendrils, already mutating into enemy architecture. Roach planted the charges, armed them, and grinned. Heat fire. The explosion sheared the infected section off the hull, ripping the interceptor free. But not before it breached the pressure bulkhead. 2 Zeraxi infiltrators, monstrous quadrupeds with mantis claws, tore through the hole into the main bay. Miko was the first to meet them. With calm precision, he knelt and raised his sidearm. For the living, he whispered, and fired 2 blessed rounds into the first beast-eye cluster. It shrieked, tumbled, and rolled into a wall. The second lunged for him. Cruz tackled it midair. They rolled together, her blade slicing through one leg, then another. It spewed acid, but her armor held. Elias wrenched himself from the neural link and grabbed his rifle. He ran in, saw the second Zeraxi reaching for Cruz's throat, and emptied an entire magazine into its torso until it stopped twitching. Silence. Everyone still breathing? He called. Mostly, Roach coughed, limping back from the blown-out section. Cruz wiped alien ichor from her face. That one bit me. Miko checked her. Skin's intact. Armor held. But let's clean it, just in case. Too close, Elias muttered. Enemy interceptors retreating, Juno reported. Tactical recalibration underway. Expect reinforcements in 3 hours. Plenty of time, Cruz said, reloading. To do what? Roach asked. Elias stared at the tactical projection, a ringed world littered with graves, a dead fleet, and hidden enemies. To wake the war. 1,030 hours. Debris cluster Echo 6, edge of Saturn's magnetosphere. Juno led them to a hidden wreck buried in the darker side of the debris field. An old Terran supply cruiser, designation Galloglass, presumed lost. The ship had been converted into a listening post decades ago. Juno claimed it held a beacon, a key to launching Operation Deadlight. It was unpowered, dead cold, and crawling with unknown life forms. Elias ordered a boarding team. Take only what we need. If it moves, shoot it. If it breathes, don't trust it. Inside the Galloglass, it was like walking through a frozen museum of despair. Bodies floated in stillness. Some looked peaceful, faces untouched by violence. Others were twisted in agony, half melded with the walls. The Zeraxi had clearly reached the ship first. What they hadn't destroyed, they had corrupted. I don't like this, Cruz whispered, sweeping the corridor. They reached the command hub. The beacon core was intact, but dormant. Roach set up his tools, carefully bypassing bio-corrupted circuits. Suddenly, the doors slammed shut behind them. The lights shifted. Organic matter along the walls began to pulse. Trap, Miko shouted. A creature unfolded from the ceiling, no longer a Zeraxi, but something worse. A hybrid, human bones, alien limbs. Its voice echoed from its chest, modulated like a corrupted recording. WEAREYURRE FELICIDION. It charged, Elias didn't blink. Cruz ducked the first swipe, rolled, and fired her shotgun into its back. Roach tossed a shock grenade. Miko engaged at point blank, stabbing into its exposed fusion joint with a heated blade. But it didn't go down easy. It screamed, projecting distorted psychic pulses. The world bent. Elias saw flashes, New Geneva burning, his sister on Europa, Cruz falling into darkness. But he pushed through the visions, staggered to the core unit, and ripped the power cell from its casing. The ship screamed. The creature convulsed and fell. The lights stabilized. Juno's voice returned. Beacon recovered. I am uploading deadlight access protocols now. 1,200 hours. Return to Corvette. Once aboard, the beacon core was integrated. Juno began activating dormant resistance satellites across Earth's atmosphere. Nodes of communication long thought dead. The data spilled across the hollow display like wildfire. Deadlight wasn't a place, Cruz realized. It's a network. Subterranean fortresses, weapon caches, civilian bunkers, dozens of them. Elias smiled, blood dripping from his knuckles. We just gave humanity back its voice. Roach nodded toward the window and gave the bugs something to scream about. 1,330 hours, near Jupiter's orbit, in transit. Juno's war map displayed the next step. Strike at the Xeraxes quantum relay buried beneath the Arctic ice. Destroy it, and Earth becomes tactically unpredictable. The catch? They'd have to coordinate with rogue elements on Earth. Deadlight enclaves, pirate clans, even exiled warlords. People who no longer answer to any flag, but might answer to survival. Cruz looked at the team. So we're not just soldiers anymore. No, Elias agreed. We're the first army of the Deadlight. Miko looked up. What if they say no? Elias smiled grimly. Then we teach them what the Xeraxi never learned. He activated the comm. That you don't ignore a human when they're ready to die standing. Final scene. Earth orbit approaching. They reached the edge of the moon, just beyond the dark side. From there, they could see Earth, still bruised, still burning, but alive. Signals lit up. Resistance groups answering the beacon. Deadlight had woken. Elias stared down at the planet, jaw set. This time, he said softly, we bring the war home. Deadlight Outpost Theta 7, Siberian Wastes. 0430 hours CDT. The wind howled like a dying god. It whipped across the cracked permafrost, lifting ash and snow together in ghost-like clouds. Once, this stretch of Siberia had been a nuclear desert. Now, it was home to something far more dangerous, a deadlight enclave, hidden beneath 60 meters of reinforced rock and old-world gilt. They descended into darkness by lift. Rust groaned under their boots. The stale air smelled of oil, blood, and gunpowder. Captain Elias Vorn stepped out first. They were met by armed guards in hybrid armor, part Terran exo, part alien tech. Their leader, a grizzled woman with one cybernetic eye and a missing jaw, nodded in silent greeting. Cruz whispered, "What the hell kind of place is this?" "A lesson," Elias replied, "in how far we've fallen and how far we'll go to rise." Underground killhouse facility, 0520 hours. The facility was a maze of grim halls, training chambers, old barracks, and shrines made from enemy bones. Juno's voice echoed through the speaker system. Outpost Theta 7, former execution facility for EarthGov black site enemies. Later repurposed by Deadlight insurgents during the Europa collapse. Now reactivated under Operation Ironwill. Inside the central atrium stood a massive holographic display of Earth's war zones. Civilians huddled in the corners. Soldiers, some teenagers, others hardened killers, stood with weapons made from scrap and stolen alien parts. Miko took it in silently. Roach muttered, "It's like a cathedral built out of hate." "They made it sacred," Cruz said. "They made the war holy." Elias stepped forward as the Enclave's leader approached, a tall man in a tattered Terran fleet coat, with two mechanical arms and eyes like icebergs. "General Saran," Elias said. "Captain Vorn," the man rasped. "So the stories are true." "Most of them." Saran grinned, shark-like. "You came for killers. I came to make soldiers. Real ones. We're done losing." 0600 hours. The killing lessons begin. The lights dimmed. The first group of Deadlight volunteers assembled. Civilians, raiders, former criminals, misfits, scavengers, farmers, survivors. Cruz looked them over. "This is it. The Army of Earth." Roach chuckled. "If you squint, it almost looks like hope." Miko didn't laugh. "They're scared." Elias stepped forward, unholstered his rifle, and dropped the magazine. "This is what you're used to," he said. Guns, ammo, shoot, and pray. He smashed the rifle on the ground, shattering it. Forget all that. He drew his knife. The room quieted. This is your religion now. He turned to the crowd, voice like gravel and fire. The Ziraxi don't fear our guns. They fear our defiance, our creativity, our madness. We're not here to outgun them. We're here to outthink them, outfight them, make every inch of this planet bleed their nightmares. He pointed to a teenager in the front row. You, what's your name? Samir, the boy whispered. Kill that dummy. Samir blinked. What? A humanoid Ziraxi training doll emerged from the floor. Its carapace was armored. Its limbs moved fast. Elias threw Samir a blade. No ammo, no backup, just you and instinct. Samir hesitated, then charged. He was fast, but clumsy. The dummy dodged, countered, and knocked him flat. Elias didn't blink. Again, 0700 hours. First casualty. The second trainee, a woman named Lena, rushed in next. She screamed as she stabbed wildly. The dummy blocked, reversed, and slammed her into the wall. Something cracked. Her leg twisted unnaturally. She cried out. Blood pooled. Cruz stepped forward. We need to stop. No. Elias snapped. This is war. It doesn't wait. Roach and Miko helped carry Lena to the medbay. The rest of the recruits watched in silence. Juno's voice whispered, Lesson 1. Adapt or die. Earth requires no martyrs, only survivors. 0830 hours. The shift. By the third hour, the mood had changed. Samir moved smoother now, using feints, terrain, his small size. On his fifth try, he got under the dummy's guard and drove his blade into its core. The training room erupted in cheers. Elias didn't smile. Good. Now again, but faster. In the next room, Cruz taught small arms techniques. She slapped hands away from triggers, corrected stances, cursed in 3 languages. She didn't coddle. Miko worked with medics, showing them how to cauterize wounds, mix biotoxin suppressants, and identify Ziraxi infection vectors. Roach repurposed enemy drones, turning them into suicide scouts. By noon, the recruits weren't trainees anymore. They were weapons. 1,200 hours. The burn room. The next exercise was brutal. A maze filled with fire traps, smoke grenades, and 2 live Ziraxi prisoners, stripped of hive commands, but still deadly. The goal? Get through without dying. 8 volunteers entered. Only 5 came out. 1 boy lost an arm. Another was dragged back into the fire and never seen again. Cruz snapped at Elias afterward. You're breaking them. I'm forging them. He replied coldly. They're not machines. No, he said. They're better than machines. They're human. Juno's voice cut in. Neural evaluations show a 46% increase in combat adaptability. Survival instincts rising. Morale stabilizing. Emotional fatigue climbing. Cruz looked away. We need to watch that. 1,400 hours. Arrival of another cell. Just before sunset, a new vehicle arrived at the gates, a battered crawler, its sides scorched. From it emerged 6 figures, resistance fighters from another Deadlight enclave in Mongolia. One of them carried a flag with a spray-painted phoenix. General Saran greeted them. You heard the signal. A tall woman with a facial burn nodded. We followed it through a minefield in 2 skirmishes. We brought wounded. Weapons. Hope. Elias shook her hand. Then your family now. 1,500 hours. Juno's tactical briefing. In the war room, the Deadlight officers assembled. The holotable lit up, showing the Ziraxi control zones. Juno began. The Ziraxi are deploying atmospheric suppression towers near key Earth sites. These towers will eliminate breathable air within 2 months. Primary targets include Shanghai, Nairobi, Vancouver, and Mexico City. Phase 1 is already in motion. Miko leaned forward. How many towers? 17. But only one controls the lattice signal. We destroy it. We break their link. Their swarm collapses. Cruz pointed to the map. Where's the lattice command? The projection zoomed in. Arctic Circle. Buried under 4 kilometers of ice. Protected by a Ziraxi hive spire. Estimated casualties. 93% unless supplemented by full planetary resistance. Roach muttered. That's one hell of a suicide mission. Elias stood. Then we teach them how humans die. Screaming, fighting, dragging the enemy down with us. The room fell silent. Then General Saran nodded. Theta 7 will go, one by one. Others followed. 1,700 hours, final drills. As dusk fell over the wasteland above, Deadlight fighters performed their last exercises. Blade training, range drills, urban warfare simulations using half-destroyed mock-ups of Moscow streets. Cruz sparred against 3 at once. She won, but she bled doing it. Miko conducted psyche evals. Roach distributed tactical implants. Burner tech made from enemy circuitry. Elias watched it all unfold, and for the first time since Europa, he let himself believe. 1800 hours, the campfire before the storm. That night, they lit fires in the subterranean mess hall. No speeches, no orders, just stories. Samir told a joke about how he once stole a Zaraxi bone whistle and used it to prank a drone into blowing up its own ammo. Everyone laughed except Cruz, who smiled faintly. Miko played an old Earth tune on a stringed instrument made from carbon wire. Roach passed around synthetic vodka he'd brewed in a medbay centrifuge. Even Elias chuckled once. At one point, Samir turned to Cruz. "Do you think we'll win?" She looked at Elias, at the firelight dancing in his tired, defiant eyes. "I think we already started." Final scene, deployment orders. Juno's voice echoed one final time that night. Deployment window opens in 12 hours. Mobilize all deadlight units. Commence Operation Ironwolf Phase 2. Mission codename: The Howling Door. Elias stood, blade in hand. "Suit up. Tomorrow, we paint the ice red." Arctic Circle, near former research base Halcyon. 0130 hours CDT. Operation start -90 minutes. The wind wasn't wind anymore. It screamed, pierced, cried out across miles of frozen death. Snow blew in sheets like razors, and the night sky above was consumed by a slow, churning aurora of sickly green, the unnatural glow of a Zaraxi lattice tower. Elias Vorn stood at the edge of the frozen cliff, the Deadlight army arrayed behind him. The plan was simple in theory, insane in practice. Breach the outer ring of the Zaraxi hive. Disable the lattice tower's anchor generators. Detonate the fusion core Juno had prepared. Run, die, if they had to, but make it count. Behind him, the Deadlight war columns were assembling. Jury-rigged walkers, hybrid tanks, resistance foot soldiers, and a patchwork of salvaged armor. Sleds pulled by exodrones. Even children carried rifles made from enemy bone metal. Miko approached quietly. "The wind's changing. The storm will give us 2 hours of partial cover." Cruz tightened her armor straps. "Partial means we'll still get eaten alive if they see us." Roach flicked a lighter on and off, then clicked it into a signal grenade. "So we don't let them see us. We make them bleed blind." Juno's voice broke into their comms. "Lattice disruption signal prepared. All units synchronize uplink in T-75 minutes. Probability of structural collapse post-detonation, 89%. Margin for human escape, for 0.6%. Elias smiled faintly. "That's higher than usual." 0210 hours. Infiltration phase. They moved like ghosts, across snow-sunken terrain, crawling through fissures and frozen riverbeds. They avoided the eyes of the towers, biomechanical sentries that drifted above the hive spire like jellyfish, casting electromagnetic nets into the wind. Juno's stealth veil worked, mostly, but near the third outcropping, a Deadlight scout tripped a seismic sensor. The ground ruptured. From beneath, the snow erupted a Zaraxi hunter beast, 12 feet tall, spined and plated, dripping acidic saliva. It tackled the scout, impaling him on its claw. Cruz fired without hesitation. Twin burst rounds into its skull. Miko hurled a frost grenade, freezing its limbs. Elias slashed its tendons with his vibroblade and finished it with a rifle burst to the throat. They stood over the scout's body. Young, barely 18. Cruz closed his eyes. First of many. Elias looked forward. The hive rose ahead, a mountain of alien metal, pulsing with light. It looked like a cathedral built from bone and ice. The Howling Door. Move. 0300 hours. Breach. The Deadlight army hit the outer hive with coordinated fury. EMP mines severed sentry net pulses. Pulse mortars collapsed bio walls. Roach's suicide drones detonated inside perimeter holes, carving tunnels through living flesh. Then came the flood. Zaraxi defenders poured out of the walls, skittering beasts with bladed limbs, floating torsos that screamed at pitches that scrambled comms. Miko's team led the charge. He moved with impossible calm, slicing tendons and carving weak points. His blade moved in arcs of light, deflecting strikes that could cleave steel. He prayed between every kill. Cruz and her strike squad charged into the breach, tossing thermite into clustered alien groups. When her rifle jammed, she pulled a knife. When her knife broke, she used her fists. Elias charged the generator tower. Juno provided real-time feeds into his HUD, showing stress fractures, weak joints, pulse rhythm patterns. The Zeraxi structure responded to his presence like a wound to a sword. It screamed, reacted, adapted. Roach dropped from a ledge behind him, covered in blood and soot. Got the last charge prepped. We blow this baby, and the lattice folds. Do it. They planted the core at the tower base. Core armed. 10-minute fuse. Juno confirmed. Warning. Primary hive mind has activated defensive override. Enemy concentration tripling. Elias activated the comms. All units, get out. Now. 0320 hours. The collapse begins. Roach was halfway across the ravine when the first shockwave hit. The lattice tower imploded, its glowing spire folding in on itself as if being sucked into another dimension. A pulse of black light expanded in all directions, shorting sensors, frying Zeraxi biomatter, and collapsing structural beams. The hive began screaming. Walls split open, birthing half-formed Zeraxi warriors. Desperate, uncoordinated, still deadly. Deadlight forces began retreating, carrying the wounded, firing into the dark. One tank was crushed by falling debris. Another platoon vanished into a sinkhole that erupted beneath them. Elias turned back, saw Cruz dragging a child soldier with a shattered leg. He ran to help, lifting the boy onto his back. Cruz covered their retreat. Behind them, Miko stood at the breach exit, holding it alone. Blood stained his robe. His blade was broken. He held a plasma grenade in his good hand. Roach saw him. No, Miko, don't. Miko locked eyes with him, smiled. Peace is forged by sacrifice. He pulled the pin. The breach vanished behind a wall of searing light. 0335 hours. Extraction. The survivors made it to the extraction sleds, half-destroyed crawler transports. They were barely running. Juno rerouted power to their engines using the Corvette in orbit, relaying override codes through atmospheric gaps left by the collapsed lattice. Elias shoved the boy onto a sled and climbed up beside him. Cruz slumped in behind, bleeding from a stomach wound. Roach collapsed into the driver's seat. Goddamn, that was close. Elias looked back toward the collapsing hive. Miko was gone. Hundreds more, too. But the sky was clear. No more lattice field. Earth had air again. 0400 hours. Orbiting Deadlight Corvette. Juno began uploading battlefield data into command nodes across the planet. Resistance enclaves in Africa, South America, the Pacific, all received the same message. The howling door is broken. The tide is shifting. Earth is not dead. Rise. Elias stood over the Mebe, watching Cruz be stabilized. He hadn't said a word since the hive fell. Roach approached with 2 metal tags, each etched with names. He handed one to Elias. Samir, Miko, we remember them. Elias took the tag, and finally, he wept. 0430 hours. Earth-wide aftershock. Across the globe, Zeraxi hive responses began failing. Without the lattice tower, the coordination between swarm elements fractured. Some became feral, others shut down entirely. In Manila, Deadlight guerrillas retook half the city. In Buenos Aires, civilians tore down a Zeraxi spire using stolen plasma cutters and sheer rage. In North Africa, a captured hive ship was flown directly into an enemy beacon cluster. Hope was no longer a whisper. It was a roar. 0500 hours. Final debrief. In the war room of the orbital Corvette, Elias stood with Roach, Cruz, bandaged but stable, and Juno's holographic form. Casualty rate, 38%. Hive tower destroyed. Atmospheric spread disrupted. Resistance morale increased planet-wide by 71%. Elias nodded. Then Phase 3 begins. Cruz turned to him. We survived, but they'll come back harder. They always do. Roach leaned in. So do we. Juno's image shifted. A new signal has emerged. Not Zeraxi. Unknown origin. But it matches early Terran deep space launch signatures. Sector, Proxima Outpost Theta. Elias frowned. That's an old colony signal. We abandoned that sector during the first collapse. Cruz's eyes narrowed. Another surprise? Juno's voice dropped lower. Or another front. Final scene. Earth orbit. View of the cracked planet. The camera pans across Earth. Scarred, burning, bleeding, but fighting. Deadlight banners rise in the smoke. Civilians with weapons. Children in body armor. The human spirit, raw and unbeaten. Elias, standing in the viewing deck of the Corvette, speaks softly to no one. We've opened the door. He tightens his grip on his sidearm. Now we drag hell through it. Location, Deadlight Forward Command, Iceland, former NATO listening post. Time, 0645 hours CDT, 2 days after the Howling Door, the old fortress sat half buried in snow and scorched ash. Its outer defenses were welded from repurposed ship hulls, lined with skulls, both Zeraxi and human. Once a Cold War relic, it now pulsed with energy, the central hub of a rising rebellion. Inside, the survivors of Operation Howling Door had gathered, and among them stood Elias Vorn, scarred, grim, colder than before. He watched as resistance banners were raised across an enormous hollow map, red flares from Sao Paulo, gold pulses from Johannesburg, and a new flash, blue and flickering, over Europe. The war was waking Earth, but so were its wounds. Behind him, the door opened. Cruz entered, limping slightly, but upright. Her wounds were sealed, but her eyes told another story. You didn't come to the memorial. Elias didn't look at her. I was busy coordinating Tokyo's airstrike routes. Even soldiers grieve. I'm not a soldier anymore, Elias said flatly. I'm a hammer. When the world throws at monsters. Cruz stepped closer. You're human. If we forget that, we're already Zeraxi. Elias's jaw twitched. He turned away. Outside the room, Deadlight fighters gathered for a moment of silence. A flag stitched from burnt Zeraxi skin flapped over the parapet. Samir's name, alongside over 200 others, had been carved into obsidian. Roach stood among them, eyes hidden behind soot-smeared goggles. In one hand, he held Miko's broken blade. Time, 0700 hours CDT, Juno briefing room. Juno's projection flickered into clarity, surrounded by resistance leaders from various enclaves, some in person, others via flickering comm links. Operation Howling Door. Victory parameters confirmed. Strategic consequence. Global morale surge. Tactical consequence. Swarm mine destabilized. However, the map zoomed in on Eastern Europe. A new anomaly has emerged near Warsaw. Bioenergetic readings off the scale. Civilians report ground melting. Sightings of malformed creatures, possibly mutated Zeraxi. A commander from Poland's Deadlight Cell spoke up. We've seen this before, not just soldiers. They've begun terraforming humans. Gasps broke across the room. Roach muttered, the bastards are rewriting us. Elias clenched his fists. Why Warsaw? Cruz stepped forward. Underground fault lines. It's a natural geothermal vector. If they seed a new lattice core there, they won't need the sky anymore. Roach finished. They'll turn Earth's crust into a hive. Juno concluded grimly. This is not just war. This is infection. If not purged within 48 hours, full planetary transformation estimated at 92% probability. Elias turned to the group. Then we don't wait for orders. We hit them now. Time, 0900 hours CDT. Resistance convoy en route to Warsaw. The sky over Europe was bruised and broken. Deadlight convoys thundered through frozen highways. Hybrid vehicles, exosuits, and crawling siege walkers. Above them, stolen Zeraxi drones scouted. Civilians lined the roads. Some cheered, some just stared with hollow eyes. One little girl held up a sign, "Kill them for Miko." Inside a reconditioned troop carrier, Cruz rechecked her weapons. Elias sat across from her, loading ammo with surgical calm. He hadn't spoken much since the mission began. Cruz finally broke the silence. We lost good people in the Arctic. We'll lose more before this is done. We shouldn't forget that. Elias looked up. I don't. Outside the carrier window, columns of smoke rose from Warsaw's outskirts. Green, pulsing, and wrong. The sky itself was beginning to bend. Time, 1030 hours CDT. Warsaw Exclusion Zone. Outer edge. The city had become a corpse. Glass towers melted. Streets sagged into sludge. What had once been neighborhoods were now alien nests, dripping with webbed walls and humming with organic pulses. Worst of all were the new creatures. They moved like Zeraxi, but twitched like humans. Their limbs bent in wrong directions. Their faces still held expressions. Cruz stared in horror. That's not just mutation. That's possession. A woman ran out from a crumbled building, screaming. Behind her came a twisted humanoid form, part man, part insect, its face still mouthing help as its claws reached forward. Elias pulled his sidearm and shot it clean through the skull. The woman collapsed in sobs. This is a harvesting zone, Roach muttered. They're growing soldiers from civilians. Juno cut in. Voice taut. Confirmed. They've developed a conversion vector. Hive spores rewriting DNA. Estimated time from infection to assimilation for minutes. Cruz snapped to action. We need Deccan teams, flame squads, evac corridors. There is no evacuation, Elias said coldly. She turned on him. You can't mean that. If they're infected, we kill them. You saw what happened to Miko. You want more of that? Then pull the damn trigger. Time. 1,100 hours CDT. Assault begins. The Deadlight Army opened fire. Flame turrets spat gouts into the nest clusters. Rail rifles punctured spire walls. Rockets slammed into biomass nodes. The Zeraxi responded with madness, dropping infected humans onto the front lines. Suicide bombers, twitching children, mutated dogs. Cruz's line nearly broke when a converted nurse lunged at her, implanted with a self-detonation pod. Roach tackled her out of the blast radius. She had a red cross tag, Cruz whispered. She wasn't her anymore, Roach replied. None of them are. Elias and his strike team reached the core fissure, a sinkhole lined with pulsating tubes that stretched miles into the earth. Juno guided them. There is a singular nerve node, organic, connected to the Hive's rapid terraformation core. Destroying it will collapse the mutation spread. Elias nodded. Send in the anthem. Time. 1,145 hours CDT, the human anthem. Roach unlatched a crate. Inside was Juno's secret weapon, a sonic dissonance bomb, dubbed Anthem. It emitted an ultra-frequency tuned to disrupt Hive neural pulses, using Earth music as the base resonance. Specifically, an old military hymn spliced into a harmonic weapon. They placed the device into the fissure. As Juno activated it, a slow melody played, low, aching, then building. Then the beat surged, drums, strings, and human voices rising in fierce chorus. Through dust and steel and broken bone, we rise again. We rise alone. The Zeraxi howled. They convulsed, twitched, screamed as their bodies rebelled. Civilians burst free from possession, some dying instantly, others collapsing in tears. Roach laughed madly. Music. Music is our goddamn bullet. Cruz sang along, tears streaming. Elias watched as the Hive fissure began collapsing. Time. 1,200 hours CDT. The anthem breaks the earth. The core ruptured. Flesh columns snapped. The city shook, buildings crumbling, alien matter dissolving. Juno spoke through the comm. Core destabilized. Terraform vector disabled. Residual mutations reversing. Casualty estimates. 26%. Infected civilians, contained. Enemy reinforcements, scattering. Elias sat down on the rubble, breathing hard. He looked up at the broken skyline. The anthem still echoed, soft and triumphant. Time, 1,300 hours CDT. Aftermath. The fire still burned. Deadlight medics moved among the wounded. Survivors wept. Some laughed. Others dug graves. Cruz walked with a limp. Roach had 2 fingers wrapped in bandages. Elias had taken a glancing plasma hit. His side burned raw, but they stood. A child survivor approached Elias, handing him a broken Zeraxi skull. You did it. Elias knelt, took the skull, and whispered, No, we did. Cruz looked at the sky. For the first time in weeks, the aurora was gone. Think they'll come back stronger? She asked. They always do, Elias said. Roach cracked his neck. So do we. Final scene. Proxima signal. Back at the command center, Juno displayed a new transmission. A blinking code. Terran standard. Old. Dated centuries before the Zeraxi War. Origin. Proxima Outpost Theta. Message. Requesting confirmation. The children of Earth. Do they still burn? Everyone in the room stared. Cruz spoke first. That's not Zeraxi. Elias looked at the screen. Eyes narrowed. No. That's us. But older. Juno's voice chilled the room. Confirmed Terran biosignature, but augmented beyond Earth's known genome. Something came before the war, and it's calling us now. Fade to black. Location. Deadlight Forward Command. Iceland. Communications and Intelligence Sector. Time. 0700 hours CDT. 48 hours after Warsaw Battle. The command center hummed like a dying beast. Walls lined with glowing panels flickered under the pressure of incoming data streams. Juno's holographic avatar hovered above a circular hollow table, the blue lines of the Proxima signal glowing eerily amid Earth's fractured map. Elias Vorn stood at the center, arms crossed, eyes locked on the shimmering projection. The room was tense, not from enemy fire, not from imminent battle, from the weight of unanswered questions. The signal. 2 days ago, Juno had intercepted a faint burst, an ancient transmission from Proxima Outpost Theta. The signal was old, possibly centuries older than humanity's first interstellar colony efforts. Its tone was fragmented but unmistakable, a voice in the static, a plea, a question. Do the children of Earth still burn? For a war-torn humanity, the message was both a beacon and a riddle. Cruz stepped forward, voice low. Who sent it? And why now? Juno's avatar pulsed. Biological signatures confirm a Terran origin. However, genomic data shows extensive augmentation, far beyond current human modifications. The transmitter's location is within the ruins of the original Proxima colonization outpost, now classified lost. Elias rubbed his jaw. So someone, or something, has been out there, watching, waiting, decrypting the past. The team of cryptographers and xenologists was exhausted. Screens showed lines of alien script interwoven with human coding, the signal layered in recursive encryption. One expert, Dr. Hannah Sokolov, rubbed her temples. This isn't just a message. It's a layered memory bank. Audio, visual, emotional imprints. Suddenly, the room's atmosphere shifted. A new image formed on the holotable. An ancient Earth starship, battered but recognizable, drifting near a reddish star, Proxima Centauri. It was the USS Aegis, one of the first deep space colonization ships lost during the first Exodus. The team gasped. Flashback sequence. The first Exodus. 2 centuries ago, the Aegis left Earth with a crew of 3,000 souls, scientists, engineers, military personnel, heading to Proxima to build a new home. But something went wrong. The ship never fully arrived. The last transmission spoke of unknown entities infiltrating the crew, biological anomalies, and a terrifying silence. The last log entry, decrypted from the signal, played in the room. Captain Alaravas's voice, tired and breaking. If you hear this, know that we fought to the last breath. The children of Earth do burn, but this fire, it is not ours anymore. Beware the shadows beneath the stars. Back to present the weight of legacy. Elias clenched his fists. So the war wasn't born here. It started out there, before us. Before the Zeraxi ever reached Earth. Roach muttered, Great. We're the sequel to some cosmic horror story. Cruz paced, which means this signal isn't a warning. It's a call for help. Juno's hologram pulsed. Additional data detected. The signal contains coordinates to a hidden facility beneath Proxima Outpost Theta. Classified Project Ashen Echo. Elias turned sharply. We go there. Preparation. Over the next 12 hours, the Deadlight Command mobilized. New squads were formed, elite teams with specialized skills. Cruz was assigned to lead the advanced reconnaissance. Roach prepped experimental weapons, plasma disruptors, sonic cannons tuned to high frequencies, and chemical agents derived from the earlier Warsaw battle. Miko's legacy haunted them. His sacrifice had given them the fire. Now they needed to strike the shadow. Elias briefed them with cold precision. This mission isn't just about survival anymore. It's about answers, about who we are, and what we're fighting against. Departure. Orbital dropship Valhalla. Departure time. 2,300 hours CDT. The Valhalla shuddered in the launch bay, engines thrumming. Civilians and soldiers alike gathered for a moment of silent farewell. Elias caught Cruz's eye. Whatever's waiting, we face it together. She nodded, steady but wary. Roach grinned, loading a weapon. Let's remind the universe why humanity doesn't quit. Deep space. Transit to Proxima. Space was cold and indifferent. The crew floated in zero gravity, the vast void pressing on their minds. Juno fed constant streams of reconnaissance data. Atmospheric conditions at Proxima Outpost Theta are unstable. Surface temperatures vary wildly. Energy signatures consistent with deep underground facilities. Crews stared at the stars outside the viewport. Do you ever wonder if we're just echoes? Shadows of something bigger? Elias's voice was barely a whisper. Maybe, but if that's true, then it's time we made our own light. Arrival, Proxima surface. The landing zone was a crater filled with rusted debris and overgrown alien flora. The Valhalla's ramp hissed open. Soldiers deployed, weapons drawn, eyes scanning every shadow. Juno projected a map of underground tunnels beneath the outpost. Labyrinthine, half-collapsed, and eerily silent. Elias led the team down the first corridor. Walls were scorched with unknown symbols, some resembling Zeraxi glyphs, but warped, alien. Deeper into Ashen Echo, the team encountered automated defense systems, still active after centuries. Sonic traps, bioelectric barriers, and reprogrammed drone sentries. Roach used hacking modules to override systems, but some fought back with violent countermeasures. Inside one chamber, crews found walls lined with crystalline pods. Inside, human forms in suspended animation, their skin pale and veins glowing faintly. She whispered, "They're still alive." Echoes of the past. In the command center, they discovered an archive. Data streamed into Juno's systems. Files showed Project Ashen Echo was a secret research effort to enhance humans with alien DNA recovered from early Zeraxi scouts. The intention was to create soldiers capable of resisting the Zeraxi invasion. But something went wrong. The test subjects began changing, losing humanity, becoming something else. Logs revealed Captain Voss's desperate decision to quarantine the facility, sever communications, and hide the project underground. Ambush. Suddenly, alarms blared. The team was attacked by half-human, half-Zeraxi hybrids, creatures born from the failed experiments. They fought viciously, faster, smarter, and more ruthless than any Zeraxi warrior they had encountered. Cruz's squad was pinned down. Elias moved to cover, his blade flashing, Roach firing experimental rounds that sizzled with alien energy. The battle was brutal and chaotic. Several team members fell. The revelation. At the heart of the facility, Elias found a data terminal. It contained a final encrypted message. Juno decoded it slowly. The message was from Captain Voss herself. It revealed a truth almost too terrible to accept. The Zeraxi invasion was not a random act of war. It was a punishment. Long ago, an ancient Terran faction had made contact with a precursor Zeraxi hive mind, trading technology for genetic experiments. When Earth rebelled, the hive retaliated with total war. The war was a cycle. The voice in the Proxima signal wasn't a plea for help. It was a warning. Escape and aftermath. The facility began collapsing, emergency protocols triggered by the fighting. The Deadlight team fled through crumbling tunnels, dodging falling debris and hostile hybrids. Back on the surface, the Valhalla lifted off, carrying the survivors away. Elias looked down at the fading planet. The ashes beneath them were more than just scorched earth. They were the remnants of forgotten sins and hidden legacies. Final scene. Back at Deadlight Forward Command, Juno projected the decrypted data to the Resistance leadership. The room was silent. Elias faced the assembly. "We now know the truth." He paused. "The war we fight is bigger than us, but we will win, because humanity is the flame that never dies." Cruz's voice broke the silence. "Then let's make sure that flame burns brighter than ever." Location: Deadlight Forward Command, Iceland. Time: 0600 hours CDT. 3 days after the Proxima revelation. The cold inside the command center was sharper than ever. The air hummed with tension, hope mixed with exhaustion, and a nervous energy that bordered on panic. Maps and holograms flickered, showing flickering front lines across Earth. The Zeraxi swarm was still fractured, but regrouping rapidly. Elias Vorn stood at the center of it all, eyes scanning the data feeds, jaw clenched. Behind him, the room was filled with the key leaders of the Resistance, military commanders, scientists, diplomats, and the ever-present Juno hologram. The new plan. Elias's voice cut through the murmur. "We have their history now. We know the origins of this war. And more importantly, we have a chance to turn it around." He tapped the hollow table. Project Ashen Echo showed us the Zeraxi's weakness. Their hive coordination depends on the lattice and the bioneural interface. Cruz nodded. "We saw that at Warsaw. The anthem disrupted them. But the lattice is still active in multiple locations," Elias said. "Destroying one tower didn't end the war. We need to hit them all," Roach said grimly. "And fast," Elias added, "before they rebuild." Internal strife. But hope came with cracks. Not everyone believed in Elias's vision. In the corner of the room, General Ilyanovrek, commander of the Eastern European Deadlight Forces, spoke sharply. "This plan is suicide. We're stretched too thin. We can barely hold current lines. You want to spread us thinner?" Elias met her glare. "It's either this, or we let the Zeraxi finish what they started." She shook her head. "Your idealism will get us all killed." Cruz stepped between them. "We don't have the luxury of doubt, nor the luxury of infighting," Elias said. Tensions boiled over. The argument spilled out into the halls, fracturing the fragile alliance. Some enclaves advocated guerrilla tactics, avoiding direct confrontation. Others demanded an all-out assault. The resistance risked tearing itself apart from within just as the enemy regrouped, training the new blood. Meanwhile, in the sprawling Deadlight barracks, new recruits trained under harsh conditions. The lessons from Theta 7 were brutal. Samir's name was whispered often, a symbol of sacrifice. Cruz drilled the fighters with relentless intensity. She saw in their eyes the same fire that had kept her alive through every nightmare. A new weapon. Roach worked feverishly in the workshop. He unveiled the latest experimental device, the Valkyrie Pulse, a compact, portable lattice disruptor designed to sever the hive's neural links in localized bursts. It was volatile, dangerous, but potentially devastating. Field deployment. The first mission for the Valkyrie Pulse was in the ruins of New Delhi, one of the largest remaining lattice hubs. A strike team led by Cruz and Elias was assembled. The plan was simple: infiltrate, plant the disruptor, and exfiltrate before the swarm retaliated. The Battle of New Delhi. The city was a shattered nightmare. Ruined skyscrapers dripped with organic growth, streets ran with blackened water, and Zaraxi patrols prowled relentlessly. The strike team moved like shadows, stealthy, precise. Close-quarters combat. They encountered fierce resistance. Zaraxi warriors surged from walls and tunnels. Cruz fought hand-to-hand, her blade flashing in the dim light. Elias covered her back with precise rifle fire. The team fought desperately, losing members but pushing forward. The disruptor is planted. At the heart of the lattice hub, they planted the Valkyrie Pulse. Juno's countdown began. Pulse activation in T-minus 30 seconds. The team prepared for extraction. Escape under fire. The lattice began to falter. Swarm coordination broke down, but the Zaraxi responded with brutal fury. The strike team was pinned. One by one, they fell. Sacrifice. Roach stayed behind to cover the team's retreat. He detonated a charge that blew open a tunnel, sacrificing himself. His last words crackled over the comms. "Tell them, we fight to the last." Aftermath. The Valkyrie Pulse detonated. The lattice hub collapsed. New Delhi was free, but the cost was high. Elias and Cruz mourned their fallen comrades. The war was far from over. Final scene. Back at command, Elias addressed the resistance. The embers of defiance burned brighter than ever. But the enemy is relentless. He clenched his fist. "We will fight. We will win. Because humanity never quits." Location: Earth orbit and surface. Final battle zones. Time: 0600 hours CDT. Weeks after the New Delhi victory. The calm before the storm. From the command bridge of the orbital corvette Valkyr, Elias Vorn gazed down at a shattered Earth below. Cities lay in ruin, yet pockets of glowing resistance marked humanity's last stance. Behind him, Juno's hologram shimmered. Final Zaraxi offensive detected. Estimated forces: 10 million combatants. Primary lattice towers operational. 3. All major hubs are at risk. Elias clenched his jaw. "We knew it would come." Cruz entered, her armor battered, but her eyes fierce. "We're ready. The Valkyrie pulses have weakened their links, but they'll throw everything they have at us." Roach's absence hung heavily in the air. The descent. Dropships thundered through the atmosphere, spitting fire and missiles. Elias led the first wave, flanked by Cruz and hardened veterans. Below, the earth burned, fires raging across the once great metropolises, now alien war zones. The battlefield. Zaraxi towers loomed, monstrous spires pulsing with dark energy. Between them, the swarm swirled like a living storm. Human forces formed defensive lines, engineered tanks, exosuits, and flame turrets ready. The air was thick with smoke and the scent of ozone. Opening salvo. Artillery roared. Missiles streaked into the sky. Juno directed fire with pinpoint accuracy. Zaraxi swarms surged forward. Close quarters. As the enemy breached the lines, the battle turned brutal. Hand-to-hand combat erupted amidst ruined skyscrapers. Elias fought with blade and rifle, every move a dance of survival. Cruz led charges, rallying troops with cries that cut through the chaos. Human ingenuity. Deadlight engineers deployed Valkyrie pulses at critical points. Explosions severed hive links. The swarm faltered, confused and fragmented. Twists in the battle. Suddenly, a new enemy emerged. Hybrid creatures, part Zaraxi, part human, wielding technology and tactics unknown. They tore through human ranks with ruthless efficiency. Betrayal revealed. Inside the command center, a shocking revelation. One of the resistance leaders, Commander Halleck, was found communicating with the hybrid forces. He had struck a deal for power, selling out humanity. Confrontation. Elias confronted Halleck. Words turned to violence. Halleck revealed twisted motives. Desperation to survive by any means. Elias was forced to kill him, rallying the troops. Despite betrayal and losses, Elias's leadership galvanized the remaining forces. "Hold the line. he shouted. We fight for every breath, for every soul. Climactic assault. With Juno's guidance, the final Valkyrie pulses were deployed. The lattice towers began collapsing one by one. Sacrifices. The cost was immense. Many died defending the disruptors. Cruz was gravely wounded but refused evacuation. Elias stayed by her side. Final stand. At the last tower, Elias faced the Zeraxi hive mind's avatar, a swirling mass of light and shadow. They clashed mentally and physically. Human spirit. Despite overwhelming odds, Elias refused to yield. He invoked memories of fallen friends, the love for humanity, and unbreakable will. Victory. The hive mind faltered. The final pulse detonated. Silence followed. Aftermath. Earth was scarred, but free. Humanity emerged battered, but unbroken. Elias, Cruz, and the survivors stood among ruins. Closing. Elias spoke to the survivors. We faced hell. We fought it down. We won because we never gave up. Humanity's fire will never die.